Developing tonight, we are learning more about what happened inside the courtroom as the U.S. Supreme Court heard important arguments today on the controversial religious freedom case filed by Hobby Lobby. Shannon Bream was in that hearing today. She's got the very latest. Shannon?
Well, Megan, it was a very hot bench today at the Supreme Court with the justices peppering the attorneys arguing the case and at times each other. Right out of the gate, Justices Kagan and Sotomayor expressed concerns about letting employers pick and choose what kinds of health insurance coverage they'll provide based on their personal religious beliefs. Justice Kagan saying, quote, Congress has made a judgment and Congress has given a statutory entitlement, and that entitlement is to women and includes contraceptive coverage. And when the employer says, no, I don't want to give that, that woman is quite directly, quite tangibly harmed. But the owners of the two companies today, Hobby Lobby and Conestoga Wood, they're challenging the so-called contraceptive mandate, saying they aren't opposed to contraception or anyone's right to access it. What they do object to is being forced to underwrite for specific methods they believe can cause abortions, in direct violation of the owner's religious faith. They say they're protected by both the Religious Freedom Restoration Act and the U.S. Constitution. But the administration argues regardless of how the owners feel, corporations themselves, well, they can't have religious beliefs, so the companies as corporate entities must comply with the law. Well, that didn't seem to sit well with Justice Anthony Kennedy often, the swing vote in these close cases. He had tough questions for both sides. But late in the case, asked Solicitor General Donald Verrilli, of course representing the administration, quote, under your view, a profit corporation could be forced in principle to pay for abortions? When Verrilli objected to that characterization, Kennedy responded, quote, but your reasoning would permit that. Several justices also asked why, since the administration has made exemptions and exceptions impacting millions of Americans, why it wouldn't do so here when something as sacred as religious freedom is potentially going to be burdened. We'll have a decision by late June. Megan?
All right, Shannon, thank you. Joining me now in a Kelly File exclusive, Mark Rienzi, Senior Counsel for the Becket Fund for Religious Liberty. That firm is representing Hobby Lobby. Mark, good to see you again. What a day for you guys at the Supreme Court. It was a tight argument. The court watchers predicted it could have gone either. It could still go either way. It'll all come down to Justice Kennedy. Let me ask you this. He asked, among other things today, what rights would women have if you get your way and the Hobby Lobby and other employers get this exemption from having to provide certain kinds of contraceptions to their employees? He says, what rights would women have if their employers order them, for example, to wear burqas, a full-length robe? That, is commonly worn in by Islamic women. He was suggesting this could go anywhere in terms of those who have religious beliefs imposing them, in his view, on the employees.
Actually, I don't think Justice Kennedy was pushing in that direction. He said that's not this case. And the truth is the law, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, calls for a balance. The government's problem here is that it doesn't have a very strong interest in forcing the Green family or the Hahn family to pay for these drugs when, as your previous correspondents have said, the government has made exemptions so that tens of millions of people are in insurance plans that aren't covered by this mandate. There's simply no reason for the government to force these families to be involved if they don't want to. There are plenty of other ways to get people drugs without dragging these people into it.
The National Organization of Women came out today and said this is outrageous. They said that basically what's happening here is Hobby Lobby doesn't want to provide American or female workers with any birth control. Your thoughts?
It's not true. First of all, Hobby Lobby provides all sorts of standard birth control. It's just a small handful of drugs and devices that can cause early abortions that Hobby Lobby doesn't want to provide.
So it's four contraceptions out of 20, just to get the numbers right, correct? They object to 16 forms of birth control. Hobby Lobby is fine with its insurance company providing that to the female workers.
That's exactly right. And Hobby Lobby is a company that does a wonderful job taking care of its employees. It pays them starting salaries roughly twice the minimum wage. It provides excellent health benefits. There's just this small sliver of things that this family cannot do. And the government's view is that Hobby Lobby should be crushed with fines, or it should be forced to kick all of its employees off insurance. That's not helpful to the women who work at Hobby Lobby or their families or anybody else.
The government seemed to be arguing that today, that why don't you just pay the fine, kick them off the insurance, let them pay the fine, and that'll be the end of it.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable that a few years after this law is passed, that's the government's position is, okay, businesses, go ahead, kick everybody off insurance, and that'll be good for people. It's really argument the government's presenting. If it's not good for companies to kick everybody off insurance, offering good insurance is part of attracting and retaining workers. And Hobby Lobby's employees have a religious belief that they need to take care of their employees. So they do that. They do it very well. And the government shouldn't be trying to say just because they earn money, they give up their religious freedom. And even Justice Kagan and Justice Breyer, justices who might be thought of as, likely to side with the administration, came out and sounded like they didn't buy the government's argument that just because you make money, you can't exercise religion.
They did press your side on whether this is a slippery slope. So if Hobby Lobby can say no to those 4 drugs through its insurance companies to the women, then who's next? Can some employer come out and say, well, I have an objection to medical vaccinations, so I'm not going to pay for those. And somebody else comes out and says, well, I have an objection to blood transfusion, so I'm not going to allow those. And can we run a law this way, piecemeal, with employers coming out and saying, well, I have this one and I have that one?
Well, it's not a slippery slope, and it's not going to be a slippery slope. For all of American history until 2012, any employer who objected to covering vaccines could have objected, and anyone who didn't want to cover blood transfusions could have objected. You never heard of any cases like that. I never heard of any cases like that, because that's not actually a real religious objection that anyone has. But if somebody ever does, this law has a balancing test, and I assume the government would be able to come in and show that it's got a compelling interest in getting everybody vaccinated. Yeah. Here, the government's problem is they've created so many exceptions for this contraceptive mandate because they know there are other ways to get people to drugs, and the government doesn't care how they get it.
It's tough to argue that they can't even fathom an exception. Mark, I got to run. Thank you.